I'm trying. Mine's a little
peppermint.
Yeah. Peppermint? No, it's lemongrass.
Oh, that's why it was.
Yeah.
I was like, this doesn't taste like peppermint.
Oh,
Hello, everyone.
We're live.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good day to everyone out there who is watching this live right now or who join us later.
I realized when I slurp the tea, it probably picks up on the
You
mic.
probably hear it, yeah.
Yeah, so I apologize. I'll try not to slurp the tea.
Although in some cultures, slurping shows enthusiasm for the meal or the beverage you are enjoying.
True.
True.
And we are in Asia at the moment, so I think
we're in cross-cultural settings.
And I know that certainly in China,
yeah,
eating the food and making sort of the noise as you like eating the noodles in particular is like a sign that you're really enjoying it, like you're saying. So I think we're safe.
And it's funny because I remember you telling me that, but then I was like, oh yeah, maybe that's the case in like the place that you were at the time in Yunnan, the village in Yunnan.
Yes.
But then when we were in Japan, I saw a huge advertisement about ways of enjoying your food in Japan and showing the Japanese that it's
a real thing,
excited about what you're eating. And they actually suggest that you make slurping noises as you're eating your ramen, which if for those of you who don't know what ramen is,
which is hard not to do because ramen is just so good.
Yeah, and ramen's like essentially a cup of noodles, but it's even
Hokkaido
more
ramen.
Oh, that airport in oh no, Chitose, right?
Chitose, New Chitose.
So
Okay.
We digress. So we're talking not about food today, although that's another one of our favorite subjects, I would say. We're talking about mental toughness.
Yes.
And all of the good stuff. So resilience, grit, stoicism is definitely
fortitude. I always like that word, mental fortitude.
Yes. Yeah. So this is a good one. This is a really good one.
Yeah, and it's, I think, highly implementable because particularly, I think, in today's world where you get hit with so much stuff that, that can be upsetting or frustrating or confusing, having that mental toughness can make a big difference.
Of course.
Yeah.
So we're going to, talk about some strategies that we can implement in our day-to-day. And again, this is something that it's not something that we just learn and then get better at immediately following the information that we receive. It's more of, I would say, even a lifelong journey.
Absolutely.
Until you really master it. And again, the idea of mastery is maybe negotiable because we're constantly striving to be better and better at something. So I don't know that there's ever really a moment where you're like, this is it, right? So anyway, it's however you sort of look at it.
Yeah, it's a progression. It's a progression, on an infinite scale.
For sure. So we can start off by talking about resilience and how to get more resilient. So adversity is not something to shy away from necessarily.
Well, I was just going to say, let's talk about what resilience is, right? When I think of resilience, I think of your ability to withstand assaults are a strong word, but like
difficulties, shortcomings.
Basically,
challenges.
Adversity. Your ability to withstand adversity. That's what I think of when I think of resilience.
And to keep trekking in the face of adversity and difficulty. You don't throw in the towel. You don't say, all right, that's all. That's all I'm going to do. You're going to continue in spite of all the obstacles, the hurdles that you have to overcome. And I think that it ties into sort of the reminder, like, why am I doing this in the first place, right? Mm-hmm. Asking yourself that, and hopefully it's for good reasons, right? Maybe, you embarked on a really interesting, challenging project, work related, let's say, or a passion project. And it's difficult, but, you remind yourself, well, I really want to do this. It's going to make a difference in people's lives, right? You have that intrinsic motivation that keeps you going.
Yeah, there's a sense of purpose. So purpose, I agree. So what I was thinking of to sort of contextualize it was hiking, actually.
Oh, that's always a good analogy.
Yeah, because I just remember we were marveling at this
Are you talking about our recent hiking
Yeah,
trip?
our recent hiking trip in Yunnan. And, we were in pretty good shape, but what occurred to us wasn't necessarily our ability to complete the hike wasn't because we were in good shape per se. I mean, being in good shape helps, but the shape, I think being in good shape really only helps for the sprint periods where you have like a steep climb and you have to get up quick, or it's just it's this sort of short-term burst of high intensity.
Yeah, and so you're talking more so of the endurance and maybe the stamina.
Well, so the longer term point of it, my point is that you could call it endurance, but I also think it's resilience, right?
Yeah.
Because when you're hiking, the challenge is often more so mental, I guess is the point I'm trying to get at. And we could have stopped at any point along the way. There were guest houses and so forth.
Right.
That we could have stopped at, but if we had stopped at one of those places, A, we wouldn't have reached our goal, and B, we wouldn't have had as much time the next day to do what we wanted to do.
That's true. We had sort of a very neatly planned itinerary.
Right.
Thanks
Exactly.
to you. You did a good job planning it.
Thank you.
But it was funny because it was a 22-mile hike, so a full day.
Well, yeah, there's another part of it. So
Extravaganza.
this was supposed to be a 16-mile hike, and then it turned out that I had
miscalculated.
Being the wonderful planner that I am, miscalculated by a significant margin, 33% or so, a little more. That it ended up being a 22-mile hike, and again, I think resilience applies here because we could have given up, we could have thrown in the towel earlier.
Yeah.
But we decided
we were hungry, right?
We had an objective and we wanted to stick to it, and so in the face of that sort of adversity, we persisted.
We did. We persevered.
Persevered. That's the word I was looking for. So I think that's a form of resilience, right? Yeah. That's not exactly like a discrete sort of inbound force that's pushing back at you, but you could call it fatigue that.
You could, or just hunger, or just maybe like the noise, the negative self-talk, like, what are you doing? Why are you doing this?
You've gone far enough, call it quits.
What are you trying to prove? Or, whatever.
It's resilience. I guess it's resilience really against
your own self.
Yeah, right? Negative self-talk.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because remember, it's not just the interpersonal communication that we talk about on this channel, but also intrapersonal communication and the introspection and the self-talk that is huge parts of our day, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, definitely we had to persevere in that situation.
Do you have any examples in sort of recent memory where you had to apply some resilience? I'm trying to think of other.
I'm trying to think. I mean, I don't want to say every day because I feel like that would be but in small increments, right?
Yeah, it doesn't have to be huge instances of it.
I mean, one of the things that it could be as easy as, going into a meeting that you might not feel 100% confident about, or obviously, just knowing that you can't control the outcome. You can only control as much as you can control, right?
Yes.
Meaning like preparing as best you can for the interview, really doing your research,
getting a good night's sleep.
Exactly. Properly, giving yourself nutrition and working out, whatever you need to do to really be in a good place to excel in whatever. And then the rest is up to, call it fate, call it the universe, call it God, call it, right? I mean, for everyone that might be different. But the point here is that we have to cede control to a certain extent, but that does not mean to be lazy. So I'm trying to think of, I would say just, a lot of, when we're as an entrepreneur, there's a lot of learning that you have to do that you don't necessarily know right off the bat. So for example, like learning Adobe Premiere Pro. I remember when I first encountered
That's a great example. Yeah.
I was pretty petrified because I had done some sort of basic rudimentary editing beforehand, like with iMovie or whatnot. But then there was a long period of time where I sort of didn't do that anymore because I was doing other things. And then I really wanted to get back into it. But then I looked at the updated, like I had never encountered Adobe Premiere Pro
Yes.
in that way. And so I was pretty scared. And you know, I found that to be adversity in a way.
Yeah, the intimidation factor of
yeah.
working your way through a complex piece of software.
Exactly. And then
and then once you're in it, not knowing what to do.
Right.
Right.
And
so
then,
getting a little bit along the way and then realizing,
Yeah.
shoot, I don't know what to do here.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a good example.
So I think, and then obviously I learned how to do it because now
Yeah.
I edit my videos, which is great. I love doing it. But
another good
that
example would be, I think, if you're starting your own business, right?
Yes.
When you're starting your own business, you will find a lot of people telling you, oh, that's not going to work.
Mhm.
It's too risky.
Too risky. You'll hear that one a lot.
You'll hear that one a lot. You'll hear,
what are you thinking?
Yeah, that's just crazy. Just get a job.
Yeah.
You know, all these things. And you know, there's some truth to the things they're saying.
And in light of last week's discussion, interpret that as positively as you can.
Yes. Assume they have your best interest.
Give them the benefit of the doubt because they probably do.
Right.
Yes.
But having that sort of barrage of discouraging talk requires resilience to power through. And
like, take it with a grain of salt. Thank them for their concern, their comment, their advice, and then just follow your intuition and your heart and your brain telling you.
Well, yeah, I think it goes back to what you said earlier, which is the way you can persevere and maintain that resilience is by maintaining this sense of purpose, right?
Yeah.
So if you're starting the company, it actually is pretty straightforward in the sense that you want this company, you know why you want this company, you have a vision of what it's going to become, and so because of that, that gives you this discrete sense of purpose that you can work toward in the face of any kind of adversity.
And on that note, it might be helpful when you are goal setting. And again, this can be something that you, for your eyes only, or it could be something for your whole company to see, or your small group of people that work with you, or whomever it is, have some sort of reminder of this goal, right? In the office, in your workspace, could be even just on a Post-it note. Why are you doing this? What keeps you going when the going gets tough, right?
Yeah. I like that, having a little something that you can pull out and just, what is it? Jolt your mind back into why you're doing it in the first place.
Exactly. Just
really
it's comforting to know that, you have a goal in mind.
And I think the reason why kids, I'm thinking sort of high school and younger, have trouble with this is, and the ones that really stand out are the ones that are resilient. And the reason it's so hard to have this is, well, it's just that the kids don't have necessarily a clear sense of purpose yet, right? When you're younger, you're kind of just reactive, and life gets decided for you, and you kind of moving from one thing to the next without a real agency, right? You're not making the decisions. And so it's hard to have a sense of purpose and say, I'm doing this because of this. But as you get older, one of the great things about getting older is your sense of purpose becomes clearer. What's important to you becomes more concrete.
Yeah.
And as a result, it's easier to achieve this resiliency.
Yeah.
But it does require something that we've talked about before, which is a strong understanding of yourself.
Exactly.
Right?
The inner voice.
Right. The inner voice.
So do the work ahead of time. Figure out, what do I want? What makes me happy? Because we only have so much time here on Earth. So might as well be doing things that you enjoy. And also thinking about, not just you, but the greater, perspective. Like, is this going to make a positive impact? Even if you just positively impact one other person's life, that's a big deal, right? We're not talking about, reaching millions.
Your purpose
and
doesn't have to
people.
be Mother Teresa level purpose.
Yeah, which is admirable, and people do it, and that's amazing. But if that is your sole purpose and you don't get there, think about how gut-wrenching that'll be, right? So don't put all your eggs in that one basket of that dream. And I think it's really important to not lose focus, lose sight of the bigger picture, in that, it's more about the journey than it is the destination. So it's the journey of doing the things to positively impact people, be it through, teaching, course creation, artwork, performance, whatever it is that you're doing. be proud of, embrace, and then don't worry so much about that destination, because that also changes. Right?
You're making an interesting point, which is that, yes, it's good to have a sense of purpose, but don't make that purpose. Well, here's the way to put it.
Yeah.
I think that the purpose doesn't need to have a clear terminus point, right?
That's a good way. Yeah, it's a moving target almost.
It's a concept that you're working toward, right? So yes, if you wanted to sort of quantify what it means to be a Mother Teresa, you have to help this many people, and make these many sacrifices, and so on and so forth.
I don't think she did that, right?
Well, I'm just saying, if you wanted to establish, that's not the way to go about it.
Exactly. No, right.
The goal is more so, I want to dedicate my life to, helping other people. I want to dedicate my life to empowering, disenfranchised communities,
exactly.
whatever the case may be. You do that, and so there's never a point where it's like, oh, cool, I hit my goal, or I haven't hit my goal. It's more so, am I fulfilling sort of the aspects of my life that I view as important?
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah, so I think that's a good way.
Yeah, and anyways, doing that allows you to sort of establish a resiliency against whatever people are throwing at you, or whatever life is throwing,
or what you're throwing at yourself too.
Or you're throwing at yourself.
Yeah. So it's really interesting. We've sort of touched upon this last week when we were talking about giving people the benefit of the doubt, positive interpretation, all that jazz. But it really is so true that an event by itself is not good or bad inherently. It's neutral. It's the way we interpret that event that can make us upset. That's at the heart of, this need to control the outcome and all of that, which we can't, right? We don't have 100% control. All we have control of is our deliberate thoughts. That is a basic, huge tenet of Stoicism, because fortitude, which thank you mentioned, is so essential to, being resilient and having grit and perseverance in the face of, difficulties. And these could be small difficulties, like you miss your bus, or it could be bigger difficulties, like you didn't get that VC funding, or you didn't get into that dream college that you wanted to get into. Not the end of the world.
Right. Yeah. I think that.
What do you think?
Well, in terms of, in the context of mental toughness, being able to separate events occurring and your response to them is very important.
Yeah.
And recognizing that you don't necessarily have control over what occurs. Right. There's a lot of things that happen to you that you frankly have no control over.
Exactly.
And being able to recognize that is important, because it allows you to respond in a manner that's more thought out, right?
Yeah.
And
thoughtful, right?
Yeah. I mean, if you miss the bus, maybe you manage your schedule a little better.
Or maybe you bike to work instead, and you reach your heart points for the week or something.
Right.
I don't know.
You can spin it, like we were saying, was it last week?
Yeah.
You can spin it into a positive way.
They're related, right? They're so related.
But I think it's really important to be able to distinguish between the things that you can control and things you can't, because the things you can't control doesn't, you shouldn't probably spend a lot of time thinking about what went wrong in those cases. It's better to figure out the ones that you can control, because those are ones that you can improve on in the future. That sort of enables you to be better prepared for future adversity.
Right. The other interesting thing is, so this idea of sort of the dress rehearsal. May I have your cup, please?
Oh, thank you.
So here we have some hibiscus.
Mixed with a little lemongrass.
Lemongrass hibiscus.
Oh, yeah.
So, a blend. What did we say it was?
Infusion.
That's it. Yeah. For the tea terminology. So recon ahead of time can also really help with this. If you go into a situation where you think, well, what's the worst that can happen? So you don't psych yourself out. So let's go back to that interview example. Let's say you have this big interview and you're really nervous because it happens to be your dream job, like the, perfect job for you. Okay, I'm going to put that in quotes, perfect. And if you can just do a little bit of a mental exercise where you recon ahead of time, you go through the motions of the situation where this whole thing goes awry and it goes so wrong. How does it make you feel? Run through those emotions, and they're going to be negative emotions probably. And then what happened at the end? Not that big of a deal. It wasn't the end of the world. So if you can do this actually increases your resilience towards those kinds of adverse outcomes. And
so are you, just so I'm clear, are you saying that
before the interview,
replay the failure scenario?
Before going into the interview.
Right.
I'm sorry, that wasn't clear. Before you go into the interview, you want to imagine the worst case scenario.
Right. So replay is the wrong word, but you mean, right. So envision
it. Yeah.
The failure
Some
scenario.
People call it a visualization.
Visualize. Yep.
Yeah. But the point here is not to dwell on it. Like, you don't replay it over and over. You just imagine, a play, right? And you're like the protagonist, and you go in and you see a situation where the whole thing went awry, all these snafus and everything. And then at the end of it, you say to yourself, okay, that was the worst that could happen. That's okay.
I love that.
It's not that big of a deal. And that really helps develop our mental fortitude.
Yeah.
Because, what were you going to say?
Well, I just think, I feel like Tim Ferriss has something called
fear setting.
Yeah.
That made me think of that too.
Yeah. Fear setting, where it's very much like you're describing.
This is a stoic, I didn't make this up. This is a stoic exercise.
Right.
Let me see Marcus Aurelius, actually, the Roman emperor and stoic. He would say that he never wanted to be surprised. He always wanted to be prepared. In fact, in the morning.
Oh, I got goosebumps. I love that.
Yeah. And a lot of people might say, well, but isn't that just pessimism? Not really.
It's just why I don't like surprise parties. Yeah.
Why don't you like surprise parties?
I want to be prepared. I want to know what's going on. I want to be, whatever comes, I want to make sure that I'm anticipating and can respond appropriately.
Yeah. So basically Marcus Aurelius, and I can put the actual quote in the show notes if you're interested, but it's basically like you wake up in the morning and you say, all right, I'm going to encounter difficult people today. And you might say, okay, well, that's a negative way of thinking. Like, why don't you, change your mindset and make it positive? That's still in line with that, like, positive thinking. It's just that, you'll encounter some adversity, be it in the shape of a person or a thing or an email or whatever. But the point is that is not going to throw you off your roller coaster. Yes. Not going to throw you off your rocker, because you almost expect it to happen. And then you can, instead of, lashing out at the person or getting frustrated or angry or whatever other high charged emotion surfaces, you can instead focus on problem solving and negotiating, right? Because you almost expect it. You're like, yeah, I knew you were going to do that, right? So
I would call it, another way to call it is boundary setting, right?
That's really good.
You're essentially establishing the boundaries.
Yes.
In particular, you're establishing what is the boundary of how bad it could get.
Right.
Right. And by understanding that, that in a worst case scenario, this is as bad as it gets. And if you can get comfortable with that scenario and see a path to recovery, even in that worst case scenario, that you can go in there with confidence that the outcome is recoverable regardless.
Exactly.
Right. And I think that's so important. And in the case of him saying, oh, I'm going to wake up and encounter annoying people today, basically, it's just, you're just pre-programming yourself to know that there are going to be some difficulties today. And that's to be expected, and that's normal. Right. So when they happen, you can smile like, there it is. I was waiting for that, Yeah. And if it doesn't happen, then you're delighted.
Yeah.
Right.
You're like, wow, that was a great day.
And then you feel grateful and how lucky it is that, you didn't run into those annoying people.
Yeah. And if you do run into those annoying people, then, make it a teachable moment. I always like saying that, because I feel like it is life's a lesson, right? Every moment of every day can be something that we learn from. It's just whether we'd like to, treat it that way or not, right? Sometimes we're just like.
Totally. And I think that's a big part of mental toughness is not only sort of equipping yourself to deal with the adversity in that moment, but it's also learning what to do afterwards, how to make the best of it, and most importantly, to learn from it, so that A, you can avoid it in the future, and B, you can apply that learning to other aspects of your life.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
That's a huge part of the toughness, right? That's what I think of. Because by doing that, you're effectively
building muscles.
Yeah, building muscles. I was thinking of like skin, right? People say you have a thick skin. The more you learn to deal with adversity, the thicker your skin becomes, because the stronger your armor is, right?
What was that? It's so interesting, all these things that we learn, and just that's why socialization is so important. Like I'm thinking of like recess and preschool and whatever, right? Because you learn all the little, not the hymns. What am I thinking? I'm thinking like the songs, the nursery rhymes.
Oh,
I'm rubber, you're glue. How does it go? I haven't said it in like eons. Gosh. I'm rubber, you're glue. Whatever you say to me falls off of me and sticks back to you. Is that what it is?
Interesting. Yeah.
I don't remember it.
But some of these things carry some truth.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, that is mental toughness. It's like, that's not going to stick on me. I'm rubber. Right. It bounces off of me.
Totally. Yeah, that's really fun. I don't think I heard that one. I don't think we use it. That sounds
I remember.
That sounds like more like a all-girls school.
No, but the thing is that like you hear these when you're little, they don't make any sense.
Is it aphorisms? Are they aphorisms? I don't know, probably not.
Nursery
rhymes. I just can't remember on the spot.
I don't know. But they don't make much sense. Like, I'm rubber, you're glue, whatever. But then later on.
But they are all about building that sort of armor.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
And the sooner you can build it, the more equipped you are. Because the world is a tough place.
Yeah.
And the reality is you're going to encounter a lot of headwinds.
Yeah.
And if you don't, then frankly, your life's kind of boring. I'm sorry. Most of us encounter headwinds. And
that's what makes it like
overcoming
spicy.
Those headwinds is part of what makes life special, enjoyable. Yeah.
And then you can look back and say, wow, look at that. Like, in spite of all the odds, we persevered and we overcame this obstacle.
Yeah. You should almost be embracing these moments of adversity, because you should be embracing them. Because they are opportunities to learn, opportunities to strengthen yourself. I was thinking, and grow. I was just thinking of a while back, Mary Daphne's parents treated us to a wonderful cruise for our honeymoon.
Oh, that was amazing.
And it was so much fun and I loved it. But I will say, by that last day, I was like, you know what? I'm ready for some adversity again. This is just too comfortable.
I definitely wasn't thinking that.
Maybe for you, it may take a few more days.
I was still on my honeymoon. I was like, this is amazing.
Yeah, I to be fair, I'm a little masochistic, but I just
remember, guys, he takes cold showers.
Yes, exactly.
Wim Hof method.
Wim Hof method.
Yeah, okay.
But there's no question for me, having that adversity, and challenge, and dealing with the unexpected is part of what sort of gets me up. It keeps me going, because it just.
Let's talk about that for a sec. A friend of mine a couple weeks ago asked me, like, she was wondering how we deal with uncertainty. And at the moment, I wasn't really I didn't even know how to answer that question. Let's talk about that for a second. Like, what is it about uncertainty that makes people so nervous? I think it's the lack of control, personally.
Yeah. I think that's a big part of it. It's a lack of control.
Perceived control, because we actually don't have any control. Like, one of my favorite quotes, and I now I just thought of it, but then I want you to chime in. Life is what happens to you while you're busy making other plans. Plan as much as you want. Do a beautiful vision board, storytelling, storyboarding, bullet journaling, what?
All of those things.
All of that, which is lovely. But guess what? It's not going to go exactly.
So Mike Tyson has a more pithy way of saying it.
Okay, what does he say? He's a boxer, right?
Yeah. Everyone has a plan until they get punched in the face. Yeah.
Well, all right, there you go.
But it's true. It's saying the same thing.
It's true.
And I think part of getting back to your question,
how do people deal with uncertainty?
Why are people so afraid of uncertainty? It's because you can't do what we're talking about. It's much harder to set the boundaries. It's much harder to fear set when you don't know what's coming to you. And so I think actually a big part of becoming emotionally stable in life is learning how to control what is uncertain in your life, right? And by that I mean,
what do you mean?
Well, because there are some aspects of your life that you'll never be able to control. One of them being,
the weather.
The weather, but I'm even talking personally, like,
okay.
As you get older, your genetics may predispose you to certain illnesses and so forth. You can't control that. But there are aspects of your life that you can control, right? Being sort of financially responsible is something you can control. And I think a lot of people feel
getting enough sleep.
These are things you control, right? A lot of people feel a lot of stress around these things. But these are things that if you create the right systems, you can control those. And you get rid of that uncertainty. And by getting rid of that uncertainty, you can set boundaries and life becomes a lot better.
Yeah.
And then you know the things that you can control, and you also know the things that you can't control.
Yes.
And that by understanding what you can and can't control, you can really prepare yourself. First of all, you control the stuff you can't control. And then the stuff you can't control, you at least know what those are.
Right.
And sort of prepare yourself to be surprised.
Exactly. And that's what Marcus Aurelius is talking about, right? What you mentioned is also another tenet of Stoicism. Knowing exactly what is in your power to control and then what is outside of that power. And again, this has nothing to do with being lazy. It's the difference of saying, I'm going to get an A+ on that science exam, as opposed to, because you just don't know, right? I mean, you don't know what the scoring rubric looks like. You don't know what the questions are. You don't know any of that stuff. You don't know what the, human's rater who's biased, aka the teacher, is feeling that day, right? Unless it's scored by a robot. Anyway, different subject. You can tell I think about assessment quite a bit. But the point here is that, what we can control is actually very little, but then doing our best to study so hard and smart for that science exam. That is the only thing within your control. And then the rest is like, okay, well, the rest is up to the universe.
Yeah. And I think learning, the one thing that you can't control, we've talked about this, is the way that you react to these things. And that, is always in your control.
Yeah.
And that should be a big source of comfort for you, because once you condition yourself to respond to situations, to adversity in a thoughtful,
problem solving
and practical way, then everything else that you can't control becomes a lot less scary, because whatever happens to you,
you have the tools within you.
You have you have the internal toolkit to deal with whatever comes.
Yeah. So add it to your Explearning Communications toolkit.
Yes. Yeah. So.
And the other thing that, who else also said to contemplate ahead of time, like the events? Seneca also said, another Stoic.
Yeah. I mean, the Stoics have a master.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. I mean, that's okay. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. You go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, it looks like you're about to jump into something else, and we're running up against our time bounds.
You can tell I love talking about this topic.
So I was gonna say, like,
maybe I should put this in a lesson.
Oh yeah. Well, what are you gonna say? Give me a teaser, and then.
Well, it's interesting that when you do this recon ahead of time, fear setting, contemplating the events before they occur, like the worst case scenario, so to speak. This is actually a part of cognitive behavioral therapy, and it's called decatastrophizing. Yeah.
Interesting.
So you basically allow yourself.
You're basically saying what seemed vaguely like catastrophes aren't actually catastrophes.
Yeah. And it's a way to like deal with anxiety and with this anxiety of not knowing and the uncertainty, which I think many of us have felt in various situations. Maybe you're feeling it right now. So just know that just doing some of these exercises will really, really help. abate those sort of sensations.
Yeah, I like
so
that
allow
deep
yourself
pathway.
to feel the icky, like, the down, emotions, and then embracing them and being like, okay, well, that wasn't the end of the world, was it?
Yeah, I've heard cognitive
behavioral
psychology, CBT.
CBT, yeah,
CBT.
therapy.
I've heard it mentioned a lot in the context of
Stoicism, yeah, because
it's sort of like the
Stoicism,
modern version.
yes, it informs that whole school of thought.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I mean, if there was one sort of recommendation I would give in terms of establishing this mental toughness, it's to get familiar with the Stoics, because they are the ultimate mental athletes.
So true.
Right? These guys are so tough, and it's because they've developed these systems that work really well for preparing yourself for situations that are undesirable, or that are just part of what's part of the challenges of life, but they're really good at prepping you for that.
Yeah. It's I think they call it the contemplation of the sage. That is the equivalent of like Buddha to Buddhism.
Yeah.
So
and there's obviously a bunch of good books on it, but a good place to start, would you say, is The Daily Stoic, Ryan Holiday?
You can sign up for Ryan Holiday's if you go to, I think, dailystoic.com, you can sign up for his blog on Stoicism, and he'll deliver a nice.
Oh, I want to do that.
Yeah, they're really good.
I didn't know he had a blog. He has a book called The Daily Stoic.
Yeah, he also has like Stoic Dad or something.
Oh,
so, anyways, so you can sign up for that, and then you get little chunks of information delivered to your inbox, and really informative.
Yeah, I like that. Cool. Well, all right.
Well,
yeah, I think I'm going to do some more reading on the Stoics.
Yes.
Because I feel like you never get enough of it.
I know.
But in the meantime, hopefully some of this was helpful in terms of, helping you cope with maybe some of the challenges that you're facing at the moment, or expect to face soon. We all have them.
We all have them.
And it's really, I think it comes down to how we choose to deal with them.
Yeah.
Right.
And it's only as much of a mountain as you make the molehill.
Right. Yeah, let's go with that.
Making a mountain out of a molehill.
I like it. It's good.
Yeah.
All right. Well.
All right. Well, happy Explearning, everyone. And we'll see you next week for a live. It will be a day earlier.
Yeah, or a day early, because we're getting on the flight the day we normally do it.
Yeah, but I will have that up so you'll be able to see it.
All right.
All right. And stay tuned for our lesson coming out later this week.
Mm-hmm.
So we will see you next time.
Yep. See you guys.
Thanks for joining.
Thanks
Bye,
again
everyone.
for tuning in.